Welcome back, everybody. I'm Sean LaFlock. I'm here with Scott Hagnes. This is the Fitness, Wellness, and Longevity Podcast. Scott, how goes it, man? Looks like you're back home.
I'm back home. Yep, just got back last night. Free, and I'm trying to stay warm here, even though I'm in the office. I guess I had got used to warmer temperatures in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, right? What's the weather like there now?
It's gray and rainy, but it's actually supposed to be a fairly sunny and reasonably warm week starting, I think, sometime tomorrow.
Nice.
So yeah, we haven't even had a hint of ice or snow this year, so that's good.
Well, I know that the weather was probably decent where you were. I know you had some rain down in SoCal there, but I don't think it was as nice as Southern Florida over this last past weekend, where the Wodapalooza, now which is a CrossFit, in a sanctioned event, the Wodapalooza Fitness Festival, was going down.
I doubt it. Yeah, we had 4 straight days of rain. It was more rain in a 4-day stretch than I've seen here this year for sure, and maybe even the last few years here. So yeah, not. I'm sure not as warm. I think we topped that in the low 70s. What did you guys get down there?
Oh yeah, I mean we were pretty much the same. We got a little bit of rain on Sunday morning, and that forced some changes in some of the events. But overall, it was pretty stellar weather overall.
Nice.
So I figure in the beginning of this, I'll just give a rundown of the elites here, as this is a CrossFit sanctioned event. The winners of the elite men, elite women, and then elite teams will get an automatic invite to the CrossFit Games for 2019. So we'll start off with the elite men. Patrick Vellner took it home. He won by over 100 points over Travis Mayer and then Noah Olson. I know that Noah had a terrible first day, but was able to bounce back from like being in like almost dead last to finishing third, so getting on the podium.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't know where they are in terms of their peaking cycle, but I know Travis was already at the Dubai Fitness Championship, and I think he placed second or third, and now he just placed second again. So if Vellner or Fraser end up winning another event, technically that could make Travis just pop in. So whether they make a top 20 in the open or whatever. So supposedly what happened is they're going to be prioritizing certain events, like whether it's the open or the Rogue Invitational, wherever it might be. If you win one of those, that's going to help your seeding when you get to the actual CrossFit Games. So the smaller sanction events or whatever they are, if you win those, you're going to be seated lower, which means that, like, say if you won Wodapalooza, that's one of the more competitive events, that's going to get you a higher seating. But you also won, let's say, the fittest in Iceland. The fittest in Iceland is going to be, you're going to let the second place person go there, and you're going to take the seed for the
You're going to take your
winner of
higher seed,
Wodapalooza,
right?
let's
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
So we might see Travis Mayer there, but again, Travis and Noah perennially are like on the top of the leaderboard in the open anyway. So hopefully they'll pull things together and hit one of these these sanctioned events and eventually make it. But right now they're on the outside looking in, and from what I heard, Vellner looked pretty much unbeatable the entire weekend.
Well, yeah, finishing that's pretty substantial. What about on the women's side?
On the women's side, you had Tia Claire Toomey, who, again, pretty dominant, won by almost 100 points over Carrie Pierce. And then Sarah Sivgensdottir took third. Kristen Alta took fourth. Some names that were on here, tons of invites from former CrossFit Games athletes. But Tia Claire Toomey doesn't look like she's going to be beat by anybody other than maybe Katrin's David's daughter. But we shall see later on this year, as this is very early in the CrossFit season. But Tia Claire Toomey has locked up a spot for the CrossFit Games. So this kind of brings a question in, is like, how do these athletes go from here once you have punched your ticket? So if the CrossFit Games are still in August and you're already in January, what do you do now? Do you take a deload?
Right.
Do you work
You
on your
don't have
weaknesses?
to do the opens.
You don't have to do the
regionals to
open.
prepare
That's
for
so
anymore.
big. Imagine how
Yeah.
much stress off of you that is.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. If you're punched your ticket already and you still have, I think, around 7 or 8 months without looking at the calendar. But yeah.
And then on the team side, So it was 2 gals, 2 guys. Team Ramwad, and I believe that was Alec Smith, Jamie Green. They made a super team and they just killed it. There was 2 other athletes. I think I forgot who they were, but they were awesome. They did very, very well. But the biggest thing was that CrossFit Mayhem Freedom, which is Rich Froning's team, finished 5th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when it's a non-CrossFit sanctioned event, doesn't look like they're going to do very well if it's a CrossFit style event where there's lots of worms and things that the teams have to work together with. Obviously, they're going to do a little bit better, but in terms of just independent strengths and weaknesses, there are other teams that are these huge, super teams that seem like they're going to be starting to push, Rich and his team.
Now, I didn't get to see what a lot of the workouts were for the teams. Was this, so we talked like the Dubai Fitness Championship, the team events were more
individual,
essentially individual-ish based
Yep.
rather than cooperative efforts. Was this
These were a little bit more
thread?
of a blend, but it wasn't just team. So like, in regionals, let's say it's like 100 worm squats, move the worm, 100 worm thrusters, move the worm.
Yep.
Like that's not what this was. It was like there was components where you were kind of individual, and then there's some components where the teams were working together. But definitely more of an individual effort, but however, a little bit more of a team effort than the Dubai Fitness Championship was.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
it'll be really, really interesting to see how that shakes out over the course of the year.
The other cool thing is that, obviously Alex Smith and Jamie Green were in the games last year. So it's interesting to see what happens if they end up making it as individuals in a later on competition or as open top 20 qualifiers to see what they would do if they would go team or they would go an individual. So from what I've heard is if your team makes it, you can get 2 alternates for that team.
Okay, that was one. Yeah, so you have to have 2 of the original members that qualified.
Correct.
2 of them
Correct.
can.
And then if say those 2 players or athletes, they either got injured or they decide to go individual, you could plug 2 new athletes in.
Yeah, but you can't just have a whole different team where
Yeah,
you let your heavy hitters qualify for you and then
yeah, that's a good point. And then just swap someone else in. But again, it's pretty cool that at the very least they have that in their back pocket to as team qualifiers.
Yep.
Which is a whole different dynamic relative to what it was previous years, because once you went team, that's it, your team. But now you can do a team, qualify, and then maybe do another qualifier or sanctioned event, and boom, all of a sudden you're in as an individual, and then you're trying to make the decision of what is my best option going forward to the CrossFit Games. Is it as a team and maybe winning it there, or is this as a individual and making my run there?
Yeah, interesting. What's the next sanction event on the calendar? Do you know off the top of your head?
I want to say it's Iceland. But that one, and this brings a question that I believe it was on Ben Smith's Instagram, and I'll give you the next sanction event right now. It is in Cape Town in January, so it's the CrossFit Fitness Challenge or CrossFit Fittest in Cape Town, and that's in South Africa, and that's January 31st through the 2nd. So we get the those in Africa and probably Australia-ish, and maybe more Pacific can get in there. And then after that, we got one in London, which is in February, and then we have the Asia CrossFit Championship, and that's in April. So we have a big chunk between February and April because obviously the Open's going to be going on. So
yeah, a lot be going on in there.
Yeah. So here's the question. So the most recent competitions, and in particular Wodapalooza, it was a conglomerate of a bunch of different coaches, and this was before they sanctioned the event CrossFit. It was like Ben Bergeron, Deca Comp, which is Michelle Latondra. It was all these different online fitness program coaches that got together and designed all of the events together. And this was, I believe, prior to CrossFit coming in and saying, okay, we're now running the show. Now, CrossFit comes in, they're running the show, but now you have all these coaches that A, know the workouts ahead of time, and B, can make the workouts based upon their own biases of the athletes that they're coaching. So Ben Smith points this out and goes, I'm all for, like, you know, getting some cool coaches and that kind of designing the workouts. But Annie Thorsdottir is going to be doing the Reykjavik CrossFit Championship. She's programming it. Like, if she's also then competing, let's say later on, or maybe is going to be going to the CrossFit Games, she could program shit that she doesn't want any of the other Iceland girls to do well at. And all of a sudden someone jumps in. Like, it's a great point. There should be some kind of standardization of who creates the programs so that there's no conflicts of interest in my mind. What are your thoughts, Scott?
Yeah, that is tricky. On one hand, I can see we don't want it to just be all these events just become run purely by CrossFit, and you know they have the final and only say in what workouts are. But yeah, having cases where you can clearly introduce bias for certain athletes or teams or whatever doesn't seem to be the most fair solution either. It seems like there just needs to be some sort of some sort of oversight, but I'm not sure exactly, what that would necessarily be or how that would look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. As we, again, every year that goes by and everything that we look at and uncover, it comes up with, some more questions, and hopefully some people who are open-minded enough to see those questions in the right mindset to be like, okay, cool, let's make the best answer possible for what we're doing going forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, we got two more events before the Open, and a couple more opportunities for 4 athletes and 2 teams to punch their ticket for the CrossFit Games, and then we got to go into the Open. And that's another question from there is, what do teams do in the Open? Do they have their own Open, or are they individuals? So we have to kind of find out if there is a team Open going in this year, but I'm not sure.
You haven't officially said one way or the other.
I haven't heard anything about it, but obviously there's always been something that goes on in terms of the teams qualifying through the Open. So obviously a bunch of athletes getting to the regional together. And then the other thing that I've heard is that they're going to be doing 10 Masters athletes this year, not 15. So it's top 10 of the Masters in the 35 to 39, et cetera, every 5 years going up. And then the other thing that they're doing is if you qualify top 200 in the Open in your Masters division, they then have the online qualifier, which is then in April. However, they don't use your score from the Open. You get a clean slate.
Oh, okay.
You'll have 4 workouts in 5 days, or 5 workouts in 4 days, whatever it is. And those are your scores. Your Open score no longer counts. And then they're just going to take the top 10.
Top 10, yeah. So they pared that down some. Yeah.
Yep. And
interesting, yeah.
And obviously they're doing it just because there's probably going to be a lot more elite athletes there. So they're probably just downsizing a little bit to
or accommodate, like in the earlier rounds, there could be.
Exactly.
Sounds like a very large number of athletes. Potentially, if you have some pair from every country, plus all the ones that got in through the sanctioned events in the Open.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, definitely some changes there, but overall, it was enormous at Wodapalooza. They completely revamped everything. It was about twice the size as it was last year, and it's always pretty huge. 3 times the amount of vendors. It was $58 a day to go in. Usually it's about $30. So they upped it there.
Ramped that up,
yeah, it was just insane. So, I went down there for a dinner on Saturday night, and obviously it's usually a zoo down there, but it doesn't disappoint. I just, didn't have any athletes in the run, and was doing a nice workshop on Saturday, my second Flock Fitness Fix Your Squat, Deadlift, and Press workshop. So I got an opportunity to get to CrossFit CVI in Deerfield Beach, which is about 20 minutes from me, and I did a workshop there with about 7 of their members. It was really great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Spreading the word.
Spread the word.
Which is
cool.
Which is actually a pretty nice segue into where we're going to go next, Scott, is so now that you're back from your BMX throwdown, and your riding season. Is this pretty much the pinnacle of your riding season there, Scott, or are you going back?
Well, no, I mean, I consider the competition I was in and then finishing my edit
Yep.
was more the end of the season. So I've already been sort of technically in the off season,
Yeah.
but then took a break for this, which could be looked at almost as like a training camp week.
Yeah, yeah.
You go away to another city and ride your ass off for a week.
See where you're at.
So
See what you want to work
now,
on in the off season.
yeah, exactly. So now it's kind of playing the second part of it where I'm going to, start trying to build back certain capacities a little more seriously for the run in the spring.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Cool. So we talked briefly
you
last week about some of the goals that we might have had going forward, but maybe it's time to maybe think about how we're going to structure our training going forward. I finished a competition 2 weeks ago. Last week was pretty much a deload week and kind of a transition week for me. So what were your ideas going forward, Scott? I know you haven't started your training just yet since you just got back, but do you have any ideas of what you're going to be doing moving into your first training block?
In general, yeah. This week I'm taking it as a transition week, partly to recover. I have some joints are a little cranky, but also to experiment with some movements and introduce some of the things I will be doing in my first block. It's all a little up in the air as I kind of have a list sitting here I've prepared. I'm going to start working on it a little bit today. Some little assessments, priorities, but I have priorities and I have things I know that I want to do. So addressing certain right shoulder movements and certain things around my left knee, restabilizing those areas, building those back up, and sort of sorting out a little bit of glute and hamstring issues will be a focus. So there'll be a lot of kind of movement prep and mobility work, but then I also want to gain back a little bit of the weight I lost over the last year, really. So I'm going to play around with doing a little bit of little hypertrophy work.
Yep.
I don't have a lot to, I probably 3-4 pounds is all I'm really probably trying to gain. So I'm going to play, I believe, with doing some auto regulation protocols where I'll kind of build to a certain weight, maybe starting with sets of 5, where I have like 3 reps in reserve. So I feel like I could have done 8, that sort of thing. And then I'll just continue doing sets of 5 until I feel like I probably only have 1 good rep left in the tank. So basically until fatigue accumulates to the point that I only have 1 rep in reserve. So I've seen some nice examples of this. Evan, I don't know how to Picon that works for Training Think Tank.
Evan Picon, yep.
Picon, has posted on that. So I'm going to play around with some ideas like that. I've kind of intuitively done some stuff like that before, but I want to play with it a little more structured. So I'm going to do that with some of the main lifts.
Yep.
And then doing a lot more things in the frontal and transverse plane as supplementary work.
Yep.
Which has been something I've been on after so many years of sagittal plane dominant movements.
Yep. And I will say that even in the last, let's say, 2 months of training that I've been doing, been focusing a lot more on rotational work and frontal plane work. It definitely has unlocked that rib cage movement, immensely. And obviously some of the breathing stuff that we've been doing and that kind of thing. But again, I think just getting more comfortable and getting more familiar and getting more touches on those planes of motion, I think it unlocks you immensely, and it gives you just that little bit more freedom in a lot of various exercises. And I think there definitely has some benefit, or huge benefit, especially for me as I'm starting to do more conditioning and running based, because it's a huge rotational exercise, running, whereas everything else you're fixed on a rower. I mean, on the assault bike, you have some kind of rotational component, but realistically, you're kind of fixed on your seat. Running is the only one where you're kind of working in frontal, transverse, and sagittal plane. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which probably explains why CrossFitters in general have horrific looking running form, even at the elite level. I mean, if you look at the runs at the games, it's they're just so sagittal plane based that the run is kind of done in a rather compensated manner. I mean, they can still obviously put out some pretty impressive performances, but they don't look like runners of those same distances by any means in their mechanics.
Yeah. It's I think, just thinking about that, how important it is to integrate training elements and non gym-based training to get into frontal and transverse planes, to keep you and your brain having those in your skill set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I found so many other movements have become so much easier, I think, since incorporating a lot more of that type of work.
Yep. So basically you're saying is that you're going to be doing like 5 reps of, like, let's say a trap bar deadlift, and you're going to be doing repeated sets with defined rest, obviously.
Yep. Oh yeah, I'll pick a rest, probably 2 minutes.
Yep.
Or 90 seconds, something like that.
And you'll repeat that until the effort becomes basically unsustainable.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And we're working with
stopping
the
just
weight
short.
that's around like an 8-rep max, you said?
Yeah, something around that. Yep. And it'll be kind of loaded by feel, but it'll be, I'll have a ballpark idea, and they'll depend on the day, how it feels. And so that way, if you're feeling good on a day, you obviously get more sets. If you're tired from other things, you may get less. But also, it's a bit of an assessment too, because you can see, what type of loading it probably takes you to accumulate enough volume to get a training effect.
Yep.
And this isn't something that a beginner needs to mess with at all, but because really when we write sets and reps, we're largely guessing. Even if we know kind of someone's general, neuromuscular makeup, and still you're guessing as to the exact number of sets that's going to be best for them. So.
Are you going to be fixing the weight from week to week?
I think whatever that weight is the first week, I'll try to stick with.
Yep.
Unless on week 2, as I do my first set, I'm like, I could do way more than 8 reps with this week, or it's like, damn, I barely got it. Then those cases, I'll do some adjusting.
So I guess the concept behind this is just increases in volume over time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of a progressive volume increase, and then after a few weeks of it, I would absolutely go up in weight. Because at some point, I don't want to do 25 sets before I.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are you thinking about, like 10 sets, 12 sets, or something like that?
Yeah, with folks I've written this type of workout for, I usually give them a cutoff. Like if you're still going at 10 sets or 12 sets or whatever, I say, cut it there.
Yep. And then next week, maybe increase the load.
Yeah, in that case, I would probably increase the load.
I like that. I like that a lot, just because it's pretty, like you said, auto-regulatory. So if that person's having an awesome day, they can do more. But the load isn't so much as that even if they're having a down day, they're not going to be able to get any work in.
Right. They'll still be able to get.
I did 2 to 3 sets and it just started getting really heavy. Good. Move on. And then maybe if the next workout is the same, then maybe we decrease the load and we start addressing some of the factors that prevent you from doing that effort. Oh, by the way, the day before I'm doing, I'm playing a soccer game, or I haven't slept in the last 2 weeks because I just had a baby. You know what I mean? So definitely allows you to control some variables and factors there. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yep. Yeah. And I just been reading some notes, and a few people, I've seen this in the limited amount I've had people play with it. Like sometimes the second week regresses a bit, and then the third week sometimes is you blow ahead, So it's like
that's where you get that little rebound.
Yeah.
Yep, I like that. And do you know what lifts you might be integrating this with there, Scott?
Trap bar deadlift for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I thinking I want to do bench press, but because I have my goals around a planche, I may do a flat tuck planche push up in place of it, which I think hits about my reps in reserve, like on a normal. So that would actually work well in that, and then definitely heavy rowing based movement. So that's been one of my missions for this last year, is bring my pathetic rowing strength up.
Yeah.
So I the exact version that I'll do, I haven't fully decided. I really like doing chest supported. Oh, I might have lost you. Are you there?
I got you.
Okay. Chest supported T-bar rows. I did some of those when I was in San Diego at a gym I was at, and might have to rig some sort of a chest
I
supported.
love those chest supported T-bar rows, man. There is nothing that gets you like those.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
But
the
then
other nice thing is that because you get that nice reach at the bottom, you can really pull the ribs back and really just focus on good scapular retraction. It's hard to
mhm.
not get a good pull on those.
Yeah, yeah. Just a great movement. Have you guys don't have that at your gym, do you? Some sort
No,
of a T
we
bar?
usually do. I usually do dumbbell rows. You can even do. I mean, I've seen some people use a cambered bar.
Mm,
Because there's that little gap there.
yeah.
Um, but and then I think James Fitzgerald at OPEX, I think they had a bar fashioned for it.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I know when
Yep.
I've been at the OPEX facility, they have one of those prone row benches where the bar hangs underneath and you lay on this
Yes.
big table. A
Yep.
little different, but that was nice to use. And I have been using occasionally, or I have clients, sometimes we take a flat bench and stick it up on two 14-inch boxes.
Yeah,
And
I do that. It's
it's a little janky though. And we use like the multi grip bar sometimes on that too.
Yep.
I still don't like that setup in the same way though.
Yep. I mean, I'm
So,
I mean, I'm looking at it online. It's not. I mean, there's one from Titan Fitness that's just under $300. If I had enough
oh,
space, I would definitely pick one up.
ooh, that's not bad at all. Yeah, that would almost be worth sacrificing something else just to get that
I know,
sucker.
right? Like you get like one of your rowers out of the way and just put that there.
Hmm.
Yeah, not bad. I'm surprised. Like obviously there's ones that are like $1,000, but
Sure.
yeah, the only
I'm gonna
other
make a
like
note of that.
option is kind of doing like a landmine with like the attachment.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like. I would love to be able to load the load be determined by how much your pulling is, not by what your spine can support. You know what I mean?
Right, that's the thing. Yeah, I have played with the various landmine T-bar type rows, and they're nice, but yeah, it comes back to posterior chain again.
Yep.
And if you're kind of smashing the posterior chain, otherwise, which most of us usually are, it's like it becomes a little questionable on how much
Yeah.
volume you can pile on that way on the upper back.
The only other one that I know of, like a hammer strength row machine with the chest supported. That's the only other one that's kind of similar. But even that, I love the T bar. There's very few exercises that simulate that good horizontal row and have you in a good position like that one. I really like it.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm gonna check into that. That would
Yeah,
be
I mean, again, like it's so awesome that like there's such a huge surge in overall fitness and fitness equipment that some of these things are much less expensive than I thought they would be. I mean, I looked the other day; they had trap bars on Amazon for $89.
oh, this yeah, there's a good one. Yeah, I just had a client pick one up, the heavy duty sucker off Amazon. That was maybe it was the same one. It was about
Dude,
what I think he
nothing
paid
like,
for it.
and that's all you need.
Yeah,
Nothing fancy about it. You just need some steel, and it's not like it
yeah,
spins or anything like that. You just throw some weights
yeah,
on there and just have at it.
yeah, yeah. Don't need needle bearings on that.
No,
Yeah, nothing.
forget that, man. I mean, they
Don't need
make some
bearings at
great heavy
all.
duty ones from like Rogue and stuff like
Yeah,
that. But if you're just doing it for, you're not putting up huge weights or you're not really doing it for, again, it's
yeah.
good
You're
enough.
not competing, right? Yeah.
So yeah, so you're thinking about what, like three good exercises that you're going to rotate weekly,
Yep. Yep.
and then
Yep.
just once a week probably.
Yeah. Unless I decide to do like a developmental session early in the week and a stimulative session, but I know I'll be riding a lot, so I don't know that I
Mm.
have enough capacity to do that. So, but like I said, this week I'll be experimenting, and then next week I'll let you know what my training split and what that all ends up, looking like, at least on paper.
Yeah,
And then
I'll
you're
do the.
also in the same spot, right? You're kind of getting
Yeah,
your.
and I'm kind of doing the same. I definitely have my eyes on that one arm chin, but I want to
Mhm.
play with this French method stuff. I've really been getting into some plyometrics and
Nice.
some lateral stability work and lateral. I mean, I just have a lot of cool things that I want to do. So it's about me structuring it down, putting it on paper, and maybe next week once I have that down, we'll discuss a little bit and see where we can go and how to structure this.
Mm-hmm. That sounds great.
Perfect. You got anything
Cool.
else for today, Scott?
No, I think that is it for today.
Perfect. Well, I'm Sean LaFlock, and you can get me at Sean at CrossFitDelraBeach.com.
I'm Scott Hagnes, and you can get me at scott@crossfitportland.com.
We did it this week, Scotty. And remember, guys,
That was maybe our best
one in a
email
while,
ever.
man. Remember, guys, this is the Fitness, Wellness, and Longevity Podcast. Please like us, review us on Amazon, on iTunes, and give us 5 stars. And share it with your friends who want to grow this podcast and share our knowledge with the world. Scotty, I'll talk to you next week, buddy.
Talk to you next week.
Later, dude.
Later.